And Klopp's not stupid. He can see what we can all see at the moment. That Arteta's a bit of a marked man as well. That Klopp could wield a machine gun in that dugout, and no one's going to say anything to him. If Arteta blinks a little bit too hard, he's going to get. I mean, he's been booked in the last 2 games for waving and for celebrating. So he knows that this is not going to be a fair fight if he decides to, kick up in the dugout a little bit. So,
Yep.
He's trying to get some of those intangibles on his side, and I can understand why. But at the same time, if I were Mikel Arteta, I'd be saying to the players, what a compliment that is to us. That I don't think this is actually true, but I'd almost be saying, look at how desperate they are, look at how scared they are, that they really, really want this crowd involved because they respect you and they know you can come here and win.
Yeah, I think it's weird. It feels like we come into this in a moment where we're just very good, very calm. There's not a lot swirling around the club. There's not a lot of outrage or drama. It feels like a very zen moment this week. We haven't played. We're coming off a great performance. We're top of the league. The news cycle is focused on us. It feels nice. And it feels like the right way to come into a game like this. And weirdly, I think because City have faltered a little, this doesn't feel as existential as I thought it might. Like, Clive, I feel like we can go into this game, and whatever the result, I will still feel pretty confident in our ability to go and win the league based on how we played, who we are, what we have, and what's ahead of us. And, there's something about City. And City could still go win this league and go win it by 5-6 clear points. But there's something about them looking human this season that makes it feel like more like a normal league. Like, man, points are going to be dropped. Teams are going to drop points. Someone will win it with 86, 85 points. Like, that feels kind of where we're at. Unlike those years in the past where you're like, if we get a draw ever, we're done. We can't win the title. So I think that's made this something that I'm looking more forward to than dreading. But, 30 minutes into the game, I might feel very differently. So what do you think about the setup coming into this game and kind of where we're approaching it from, how we're coming into it versus Liverpool?
Yeah, the reason why you got a little bit of quiet confidence there, Elliot, I can sense, is that, I want you all to think back to the last game that we were dominated in, right? Maybe Chelsea had a period of domination in the game. Aston Villa had 5 minutes at the start. Newcastle was an arm wrestle. So was City. So was United. We have dominated or controlled most of the games we played in, or have reacted to a period when the other opposition had domination. And so that should give you a level of confidence that without sounding too cocky podcast-wise, that our floor is in a decent place, shall we say, when it comes to performing and controlling a game of football. There were 3 games last year that sort of really coloured my analysis for coming into the season. It was Brentford at home. We've home mentioned it before, when they went long, David Raya to Ivan Toney. Second balls, we couldn't manage it. Remember that period we went through in that game? We should have won the game, but it is what it is, right? Liverpool away. Liverpool away because we couldn't control the spaces in the central area. We had Rob Holding that day, and they pushed us back late in the game. But I'm off work, so I've done a lot of Liverpool research this week. So I watched the game today, would you believe it? And man, we had chances to knock them out. We really did at 2-0. We had chances to take them, even at 2-1. And in the last second, we had a chance on the break to take them. So they offer us spaces too. And the final game that really coloured my analysis for the season was Brighton at home, where Brighton out-physicaled us in the duels, in the tackles. And when we sat on the stage, I had those games in my mind and I tried to assess what we need to do this season, which was improve physically and improve off the ball. From that Liverpool team the 2-2 draw, we had no Saliba for that day, we had no Declan Rice, and we had no Kai Havertz. If you add those 3 additions into our team, what do they bring? They bring a level of physicality and presence. So again, when you're absorbing content, like I have been doing, a lot of the stats are quite similar. Our defensive stats are slightly better. Their shot stats are slightly better. Where they're shooting from can be debated, Elliot, but their shot stats are slightly better. So when you see 2 teams that are quite even in their approach, what's going to be the differentiator? The differentiator for me is going to be physicality, second balls, and tackling. And where Arsenal are absolutely supreme this season is in the duels. Our front three are really pressy and really good in the one-on-ones defensively and offensively. We have two carriers out wide, which Liverpool don't really have. They don't have dribblers per se. They have people that play in positions. And we've added Declan Rice, who can cover Northern Europe on his own in one game, right? And then, of my thoughts on Havertz. I've been reading about him this week, and his defensive statistics are massively surpass what Granit Xhaka was providing to us. He's quicker, he's faster, he's better in the tackles, he's better in the air. We know that Granit Xhaka can pass anyone off the pitch, right? But all the other aspects of the game, he surpasses him. So we're going there with a team, I think, that can match them across the grass, match them in the one-on-ones. And also when we settle into our mid-block, if we have to, because the crowd's up for 5 minutes, I think we can deal with it. I think Liverpool are seen as one of the most direct teams. Well, we've got our sweeper back, haven't we? We had Rob Holding last time with his headband in. Now we've got William Saliba playing, and go direct to him. He'll say, "Thank you very much. That's just what I want," because I can read that. I can read that all day long. So I think we are. I honestly feel this. I swear to God, every single time we've done this podcast for Anfield, I've said we're going to win, or I feel pretty confident. But I feel quietly confident that we have learnt from last year in those 3 games I mentioned, and we are now able to manage this type of game in this type of atmosphere with the team that's how it's been constructed today. I think this is the absolute perfect acid test to see if 2023-24 Arsenal is better than last season's. And I honestly think we are better. So I'm expecting a better result.
There are 2 areas where I think the game is going to be decided. One is the psychological aspect, managing the stress, the atmosphere, the environment, the stress of the game. And the other is execution in the boxes. I think, look, I'll just say it as straightforwardly as I can. I think Liverpool have us in the second. I think if there's a place we need to elevate our game, we need to execute in the box at a higher level. Liverpool, now to be fair, the irony of this is they're coming off a game against United where they absolutely did not do the thing I just said. But they have Mohamed Salah, and, at least at this moment, he's still the man in the league, in that position. Bukayo Saka is ascending to that position. The other thing I mentioned is the psychological aspect of the game. And I want to touch on this briefly, Tim. Mikel was asked about Granit Xhaka last season, and Granit Xhaka, how that sort of flare-up impacted the game. And, I know Mikel has come under some criticism in the trip to Anfield in terms of getting into a bit of a tete-a-tete that fired up the crowd. And Klopp even referenced it. He said the crowd needs to be behind us without me having to get into a spat with the opposition manager to get them into it. He referenced that in his comments. I think one really interesting thing, Granit Xhaka had a fiery spirit that at times I think really fueled this group, this young group. But they're not a young group anymore, really, in the absolute sense. And I think moving from Xhaka's sort of fiery on the edge mentality to Declan Rice's strong, imposing, but not on edge, very controlled intensity has helped. I think moving to Kai Havertz, even maybe almost too cool at times, to be fair, has helped. We don't have that on-edge psychological profile. The team feels very calm and controlled and intense. And I think when Anfield turns up the heat, as much as I think Xhaka gave us as a leader emotionally in times, I think those frayed nerves can come when you've got a guy out there who feels like he's, one wrong tackle or one wrong moment away from the touch paper igniting. So do you think that is an advantage now? Just psychologically, we've changed profiles a bit to players like Rice and Havertz. Havertz, calm, quiet. Rice, intense, visual, but not on edge. Very much in control of his intensity. Do you think that can help in a place like this where controlling your psychology is an important part of being able to get the result?
Yeah, definitely. There are 2 aspects to this that we've kind of touched on already. One is that, I was talking earlier about Klopp trying to whip everyone up and everything. Arteta, again, as much as I'm a bit dubious as to the extent to which some of the things that happened in those last 2 games at Anfield were down to flashpoints or the crowd getting a bit excited, like, you can't rule it out. You can't rule out that that's what happened. And, what's nearly everything that Arsenal have done, particularly away from home this season, has been about removing jeopardy, taking the crowd out of the equation, keeping them quiet. And, Clive was talking about it there in terms of like the games that kind of defined us in a bad way last season. I've thought all summer, I wouldn't mind betting that Liverpool away was one of the games that he rewatched the most. And when you see this renewed emphasis on control, take the crowd out of it, take the jeopardy out of it, almost make the game a bit boring, I wouldn't mind betting that Liverpool was a game he watched 4 or 5 times and thought, yeah, this is where we need to go now. This is what we need to do. And, that game as well, it was because when we were playing our football and we went 2-0 up, we didn't go 2-0 up by accident in that game. We were outstanding and we deserved to be 2-0 up. It wasn't like even just a couple of fluke shots, and we were well in control. And so clearly, like, so much of what we've been doing, I think, has been on the back of that. As a defining game. And if you remember, Elliot, Lee Dixon was on this podcast just before that period. I think during the kind of March international break, he came on the podcast. He had a really interesting discussion with you just before that game at Anfield, and he said they don't know what's coming yet. And he was talking about Arsenal. He was kind of saying, we were in this position in '89. We went into April. We were flying. And we didn't know what was coming because we were young and we'd never been there before. And unfortunately, those words turned out to be very prescient. We didn't know what was coming. We do now. So these players, minus Declan Rice, William Saliba, who both were very, very welcome additions to this game, they played this game in April. And they played it when it wasn't a top of the table clash for both teams, but for Arsenal it was. For Arsenal, it was a defining game for the league title, even if it wasn't for Liverpool. So they've been here before. They've had that experience, and they've had the experience. Look what happened when you played your football and controlled the game, and then look what happened when there was a flashpoint, the crowd got up, and Liverpool got going. Like, we don't want those to happen again. And I do think that a big part of the team talk as well, and Arteta's going to have to lead by example a little bit from the dugout here, because if Klopp will try to suck him in, he will. And if he gets sucked in there, we all know who's getting booked out of those two, and we all know what will happen. And, when Klopp was talking about the atmosphere against West Ham, he said, behind me. That's not the loud part of Anfield. It's not the Cop, and it's not the Anfield Road end. Behind him, those are the expensive seats, right? Those are the £100 seats.
Yeah.
They're very rarely loud, but he was referencing behind me. And that's because he probably wants to create that flashpoint, and Arteta is going to have to turn the other cheek. As much as we'd all like to slap Klopp sometimes, he's going to have to, and the players are going to have to as well. But I do really think that having had that experience in April, and having had such an experience where it was like we had a bit of the game where we did our stuff and they couldn't live with us, and then we had a bit of the game where they did their stuff and got the crowd in it, and we all saw what happened. So I think this is such an interesting game to see the kind of progress we've made, because it feels very similar, even if it's not April.
Yep, well said. I think, Clive, there's the sort of soft factor stuff we talk about, managing the crowd, managing the psychology of the game, how the personalities interact. There's a fascinating tactical battle here too, because we know what we want to do: have the ball, push them back, press them, controlled territory. We've done it in almost every game. We've had the majority of possession in every single game except 3. 2 of those we had 49% of the ball. We won 2 and drew 1 of those 3 games. And we've won the XG battle in every single game except the City game, which was like by 0.1, very low chance creation type game. We want to control it. We want to press, push them back. Liverpool want to press. They want to keep you out of their defensive third. They tend to wind up in games that can get stretched, that wind up looking a little more basketball. We tend not to get involved in that, or not want to get involved in that. And I can't help but think a lot of this is just going to boil down to what happens on our defensive left-hand side versus their defensive right-hand side. Is Zinchenko going to be able to step into those midfield spaces? Are we going to be able to control possession and hurt them with Trent having to drop deeper to cover, the flank against Martinelli, where I think we have a big advantage? Or is Trent going to be able to get up the pitch and exploit space? And is Salah going to find that pocket of space behind Zinchenko, outside of Gabriel? That battle on that side of the pitch feels like where this will be won or lost for either team. Do you see it the same or maybe a little differently?
Yeah, I take it a little bit differently because I think we all see our own team's weaknesses, but we play better when Zinchenko plays, right? And as simple as that. And when he plays, we dominate games. So I'm going to try to focus on his good side. So I've been watching Liverpool.
Can I just stop for a second because I've obviously gotten something backwards. What I meant was it'd be Tsimikas, right, up against Saka on that. Let me flip this around and get this
back,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you just flip it around a little bit.
Yeah. It's going to be won and lost in those wide areas, right? But Andy Robertson's a very good player, and he's a big miss for them. He does a lot of jobs, and he's a big miss to them. Tsimikas is not the same. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see Joe Gomez coming as left back to try to stop that inversion on the right-hand side. It wouldn't be surprised at all if he gets scared, which he could do, although Tsimikas was sort of rested in the week. And so, basically, the way Liverpool play, Elliot, they're quite direct. They want to go long. And they do. I don't mean that in a bad way, but Trent's obviously at the base of the team, and he can put it wherever he likes, in whatever shape the ball needs to be. He can do it, and so they too tend to be more direct than Arsenal. Ball progression is their issue in midfield. They haven't really got ball progressors per se. They've got good technical players, but they give it to Trent, who progresses the ball for them primarily. So it's their primary ball progressor. Arsenal like to progress the ball, and so I think sometimes when you go long, don't worry about giving the ball away. It's what happens next. And it's all about managing that second ball. And so even if you watched the Brighton game last week, sometimes they had possession, they put the ball into a danger area. But if you're stretched as a defender and you're under pressure, you can't make that first pass. And so what it does, it goes back to them, they go around the houses again and they create a wave, right? They have 2-3 attacks. That's where you feel a bit nervous. So for us, it's about reading the direct ball and making sure once we win it, we can create the first 2 or 3 passes. You heard me say it a million times. First 3 into shape, we're in business. We're a good side. We get 3 passes, you're in trouble because we move with cohesion and we have a level of chemistry in our partnerships that I don't think any team has. I really mean that. No team has the same chemistry that we have in our team. And so understanding, reading their play, putting them under enough pressure so that exit pass is under stress, so we can win it clean and then we can start to control the game. I think that's very important. Our ability to progress the ball is different to last year. Our goalkeeper, because I think, is going to have a major part in this. I'm not sure if you've got a goalkeeper section, but I watched both the games this morning, and trust me, Aaron Ramsdale was good in both the games, and we needed him to be good, and so Raya needs a game. But not just making saves, because Liverpool take a lot of shots at it, as I'm sure you're aware. Not just making saves, but also getting them back where we want them to be. He has the ability to push them back with his distribution and calmness. I think he's a very important player on this day. So we had the ability to progress the ball through their midfield. And I think once we do that, I don't think they're very good. I don't think they're very good if the team has controlled possession. I'm not talking counter. I'm talking just playing through. They can get into those areas. I mean, I watched Manchester United do it, and they've got Timberland boots everywhere. Do you know what I mean? In midfield, in fact, an 18-year-old stood up really, really well. He looked the calmest. Amrabat was able to progress the ball. And now we've got Declan Rice. Do you see what I mean? We've got Martin Odegaard. I think our progression is going to make them edgy. It's how we manage the moments around our box, how we manage their ability to get smashing shots off, shot volume, and making sure that those moments go our way. If they go our way, I think our progression and calmness and our ability to win it back off them, if they do try to run at us, I think that's going to be a differentiator for us. So fullback areas are a big part of it. Elliot, again, your boy Martinelli, I'm not sure if you're going to get to him, mate, but in the 2 games I watched last year, he was major in both. And at its moment in time, we can name the team that's going to play, but I'm thinking, mate, you need a big game. You're due a big game. You need a big game. You are the man. You have a match winner. You can see the game's going to suit him. He is the man. He's playing against Trent and Konate. And Konate ain't that great in wide areas. And he's a hamstring waiting to happen. And I think we can stretch him out there. I'm not just saying because Trent won't be there. I just think we have the ability to ping into that corner and really stretch him. And then when we come back to the middle now, we're not crossing to Granit Xhaka and Gabriel Jesus. We're crossing to Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus. And I think that's going to be a problem for them. Kai Havertz's ability to arrive through those spaces, because we're going to stretch out their back three, but really it's a two, and I don't think that if we get to that first run, I don't think they can track our runners. I don't think their midfield is good running back towards their goal. So that's how I see it going, mate. Tackling, transition, first two, direct Liverpool versus ball progression Arsenal. We've got different ways to progress. I think we can make them stay in areas a bit longer than we did last season. I think that'll be the key in the game.
Tim, any thoughts on that tactical analysis and areas that you'll be looking at specifically?
Yeah, I think the Martinelli one's absolutely right, and Liverpool will be thinking exactly the same, right? They'll be looking at us and going, Salah in the area that Zinchenko's in. We know what we did with that last year. We basically pushed Gabriel right out to the touchline to look after him. But again, Liverpool will be ready for that this time maybe, and maybe they'll tuck someone a little bit inside of Salah, maybe Szoboszlai again. At the same time, last year they kind of caught us by surprise because it was the first time they'd inverted Trent from fullback. They'd never done it before, so we didn't really prepare for it. They've done it basically ever since, so we know that. But if you go back and look at the game last year, just look at the two goals. I mean, Martinelli scores the first off a transition, and the second, what happens? They get the ball out to Martinelli, out wide left. Trent's not even on the screen, dinks across to the back post. Jesus heads it in, and as Clive says, now that's Havertz there with him now, and those two kind of linking up. And Arsenal find that back post a lot. That's a very kind of rich avenue for us while teams double up on our wide players. But I completely agree. It's a massive game for Martinelli because this is one game where he's not going to be doubled up on. Like, this is going to be one-on-one stuff. And this is kind of what he's been waiting for. And, everyone knows what Klopp thinks of Martinelli. He's never shy about saying it.
No.
Every time Arsenal play Liverpool, and one of the reasons he always says it is because Martinelli usually turns up in this game, and that's because of the space that Liverpool give you. So he's definitely a player I'm looking at. As well as that, again, comparing it to last year, yeah, we had Rob Holding and he gave a penalty away, which fortunately they missed and everything like that. This was also Gabriel Jesus' first start, I think, last year. So he wasn't 100%, should be 100% this time. So, I think we're in better shape as a team. We don't have, I don't think, two absolutely knackered wide players and a kind of 70% fit centre forward this time. So, there's a lot more kind of going for us. But at the same time, look, we know what it's like at Anfield. I've turned up to Anfield and watched us play much worse Liverpool teams than this and come away with a bloody nose. So there we go.
I have to admit, I find myself leaning into optimism here, and that's always a scary place to be. I don't see an area of the pitch where we can't compete in this game. And I think we have the right personalities and the right player profiles to stay in this game. I think the midfield, we just really look a lot stronger. I really believe that. There is no question that if we have a lead, right, guys, and it's 1-0 or it's 2-1 and it's 70 minutes, everyone's going to be looking at Zinchenko and saying, is it Kivior time? I think we'd all like to be saying, is it Tommy time? We're not going to be able to say that. And that is an area where it would have been Timber time or it would have been something else. But, that you have to work with what you've got. I also think sometimes maybe just slightly because we're aware of some of the errors that have happened before, one against Liverpool, that we're a little more focused on Zinchenko as a vulnerability than maybe is right, Clive. I mean, sometimes I think we have a couple of painful memories and we all of a sudden think that's happening every game and he's just falling apart on the 70-minute mark,
Yeah, he does fall apart on the 70-minute mark. But actually, it's not, funny enough, mate, we think about him defensively, but it's actually not too often tackling. What it is pass selection from deep. So those mistakes in defensive areas, sometimes he just wants to run something out or take a risky square pass around the edge of his area. So we think, oh, his defending's going off. It's just pass selection and concentration, not losing his picture. He got done by Trent that one time. I can't think of many others where he's been roasted. Do you know what I mean? I think actually on direct play in the air, if they want to go big in the air, he's brilliant outside of his box in the air. Really good. He reads the play, drops off, gets up and keeps it in his. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful he's going to do absolutely fine. I sway on that left back spot, depending on how scared I feel. I think if Timber was available, we'd all be picking him, wouldn't we? Because he's sort of a combination of a strong left back and of someone who can progress it. And Tom Yasu, I think I love him there. I've also seen Arsenal without that dominant player, extra midfield player to create the box, and we don't always dominate the ball. So if anything, Elliot, what this Zinchenko does, his selection, he tells us exactly what our game plan is going to be. We're going to dominate the ball. We're going to try to go there and show them how good we are and dominate. I think that's the only way we can play. Now it's about dominating for longer. And I think I'm so looking forward to seeing him shut people like me up who get a bit nervous about him in certain periods in the game and just dominate the ball. And then we can adjust the team afterwards if you need to, depending on the scoreboard.
Yeah. All right. I want to shift gears slightly, but the only way you can shift gears realistically is if you're feeling fueled up and ready to go. Otherwise, you're gonna try to shift those gears, and you're not gonna have another gear to go to. Well, you know how you can have another gear to go to? By taking AG1. That's right. AG1 is a supplement that provides you 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, adaptogens, probiotics. It's all your pills, all your vitamins in one delicious drink you can take in the morning. It's not filled with sugar and gummy stuff. Why gummies are candy. They're not vitamins, right? So with AG1, you're going to get gut health, you're going to get energy improvement, you're going to get rest and recovery. It was designed by athletes with athletes in mind. So, really helps with that workout recovery and performance. I took it for gut health. That was what I started with, but I think it's been nice to clear off that shelf full of gummies. One of the gummies I was taking, it was like a multivitamin gummy, and it was 70 calories per serving, mostly sugar. You don't need to do that, right? So just put it in water, drink it down, engineered and science-driven, full of all of the good stuff that you need. Oh, and this is what I want to say. It supports all the different lifestyles too. So if you're keto, vegan, dairy-free, paleo, low sugar, like it supports all that. So if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/vision. That's drinkag1.com/vision. If you got a supplement, that's great. But a supplement can only take you so far. It turns out, and this is science, it's just science, you have to eat food to live. You do. It's true. Look it up. Google it. You have to eat food to live. Just be careful how you Google it, because sometimes when you Google things, weird things come up. Make sure you type in the Googles. Anyway, moral of the story is HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. But wherever you are, I think you're going to love HelloFresh, because I have found this. One of the hardest things about adulting is eating. Because you either wind up just going to fast food, or you wind up picking up expensive food, you wind up door dashing the same food. Having different meals with different nutritional values and different nutrients and different components in them every day, every night, that's hard. So don't worry about that. Have farm fresh, pre-portioned, seasonal ingredients and recipes delivered right to your door. They have 15-minute meals, so you can literally get the meal cooked quickly and easily, but with farm fresh, good, nutritious meals that are tasty and different. That's the thing. Stress-free holiday season, skip the grocery store, save time, tasty recipes, right? You don't have to drive out to the grocery store, especially if you live somewhere like I do where the weather's always terrible and driving stinks. They have 10-minute lunches. They even have breakfasts. So you can really, take the burden off of your shoulders of what do I shop for? How do I buy the right ingredients? One of the things about grocery shopping too, it can be very expensive, because you know what winds up happening? You buy more than you need and then you throw half of it out, or it spoils in the fridge or something like that, which also, by the way, not good for the world. So you get the right portions, you get the right ingredients, you get the right everything. Now, here we go. Go to HelloFresh.com/ArsenalVisionFree and use code ArsenalVisionFree for, get this, free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/ArsenalVisionFree with code ArsenalVisionFree. Moving right along. When I talk stocking stuffer, what sponsor do you think I'm talking about? Yeah, you know. It's Manscaped. I had a very fun conversation about shaving privates the other day with a female colleague of mine. That's not a thing that HR should know, but it did happen. And here's why. She was saying she loves the lawnmower and she uses it all the time. And this is what I've been trying to say. It should be Peoplescaped. But Manscaped is a great name. No problem with that. But she loved the lawnmower. And I'm telling you, if you shave your privates, and I think as a man, that can be hard because, we can be lumpy and bumpy and weird shaping and misshapen. And, there can be all kinds of things that are terrible going on down there. And it scares me just to think about it. But you don't want to be running a razor over it, especially one that's been sitting in your shower for weeks and weeks. But, female humans have parts. And female human parts also need to be shaved and cleaned up. And so Peoplescaped, as I'm calling it, but Manscaped has the Lawnmower 4.0. And now you can get it as part of the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Why am I saying 4.0? It's like, this is, where have I been all this time? Sorry. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, right, which has the advanced skin-safe technology. Of course, you're going to get the LED light, the long battery life, the button lock for travel, the contact charger, right? We can just set it in the charger, whatever they call that, induction charging or whatever. Comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose and ear hair trimmer. They also have a beard hedger. They also have the Shears 3.0 nail grooming kit. When you get the Performance Package 5.0, you get the boxers, which I love. I use them for working out because of the way they're shaped. They're just really comfortable for that. Point is, get 20% off and free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code ArsenalVision. Say ho, ho, ho to a well-groomed mistletoe, weird, with Manscaped. And last, but certainly not least, on this very, very long edition of Elliot Reed's very weird advertisements, if you're hiring, you need Indeed. It is really that simple. I don't understand why this, if you're using any other platform or if you know someone who has, you will have to explain to me why someone would do that. Because the way I see it is, you're going to have like 40 emails coming in from 50 different sources. You're going to have to log into 18 different websites. You're going to have to remember all those passwords. You're going to have to remember what you posted and write the different posts for the different sites. And is it working? And how much are you paying for that? Indeed is the one hiring platform that allows you to do it all. Attract, interview, hire. Okay. With Instant Match, 80% of Indeed employers get quality candidates the moment they sponsor a job post. Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. Okay? And one of the things I love is that you pay for what you get. You only pay for applicants that meet your must-have requirements. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners to this show get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. Need Indeed. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Okay, just 7.5 minutes there. Okay, well, Clive, let me stay with you just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Final thing on the Liverpool game before we talk some transfers and talk Arteta 4 years. Who's winning this game, Clive?
Hey, mate, I'm not gonna change what I always say. I think we're gonna win it. I think it'll be not. You know what? More importantly, I think it'll be really nice to win it. The last game before Christmas, I want everyone to have a good day, and Saturday night is just staring you in the face, right? It could be fantastic, and so yeah, I do fancy us, but I do fancy us to play well. I think the most important thing is we show a marked improvement from the immature Arsenal last year, maybe, and we show that we're not immature. And the fact that Klopp is calling out the crowd says he is saying what he thinks is our weakness, and we all know that we put Man City to sleep. So what's the problem? We need to do that here. We need to put them to sleep. So I think we'll just nick it, mate, by the odd goal.
Tim?
I'm going to be boring and say it's going to be a draw. I think maybe 1-1.
Would you take it?
Yeah, which I don't think would be a bad result. I mean, a win would be monumental, but a draw would be decent.
Yeah. I mean, I think we absolutely can win this, right? The hard thing with these games is you can look so stupid making a prediction because we could play well and not win. We could play just okay and win, right? Like, the teams are fairly evenly matched, but I think we have advantages in key areas. And yet, someone can make a mistake. You can get a red card. There can be a contentious penalty, and the game doesn't go the way you think. I think what I hope for most of all, obviously, is a game that's contested well between the two teams, and we don't wind up coming away talking about incidents that are unrelated to the match. A flashpoint, a critical call, someone doing something stupid that turns the game. Unless, of course, it's one of their players doing something stupid that turns the game in our favor. I'd be fine with that. Before we get to Mikel, Tim, there's a lot of swirling transfer rumors, and we are getting close to the time where that's a consideration. Ivan Toney has been discussed. There's talk of Osimhen in the summer. Dominic Solanke's been talked. Andre Onana, Douglas Luiz. I mean, there's no chance whatsoever we get Douglas Luiz. Let me be clear about that in January at a minimum. More than just the names, do you have a sense of whether you think we will do business? And if we do, what area we'll target? Because while I think adding a striker could be helpful, I fear that we are in a situation where if we do not add a versatile defender, the only thing, let's put it this way, the season can derail if we don't add a good versatile defender and things go wrong back there in a way that I don't think it would necessarily derail in other areas. I could be misreading that, obviously, as we've discussed on this pod many, many, many times. If you get a spate of bad injuries, you're not going to win a title. So it doesn't matter. You can't be mad at a club if you're like, well, Saka and Rice and Saliba all got season-ending injuries and we didn't have depth. Well, you're not going to have depth to cope with that no matter what. But is there a move in particular that you'd like to see us make to steelman this title challenge?
Nicely done. I mean, I think that this is so interesting because January is usually so much about kind of what you need in the short term. January is often dictated by injuries. We're a bit light here. Maybe someone's contract is coming to an end and we want to do this, that, or the other. Look at what we did last year. Trossard, we kind of needed someone in there, particularly with Jesus injured, and Kibior, we needed another defender, and Jorginho, because I think we'd finally given up on the idea that Thomas Partey would ever stay fit. So I find it very difficult to balance the long-term need with the short-term need, because once Timber comes back, I don't really think we need much in defence, and even my mind is still thinking, what would we have done with Timber this season? Would he have been would that have been the big challenge to Ben White? Would it have been White and Timber one side, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu the other? That's kind of what I think, but I don't really know. So our squad is quite rounded out, I think. In the long term, for me, I really want another wide player. I think long term, that should probably be our next kind of big purchase. Maybe a central midfielder, because, Jorginho's 32. El Nenny's not longed for the Arsenal world, neither's Thomas Partey. So in the summer, definitely, we're going to need a central midfielder. I think that's relatively uncontroversial. But on the kind of wide player, it's a bit like, who do you get in January? And the wide player in January, this time, can't be a short term. Because last time, we went for Mudryk, didn't get him, got Trossard, and that was good. A good move, good player. But we can't really do another Trossard, I don't think, in that area. The next wide player purchase has to be, this guy is going to challenge Martinelli properly for his place, is going to take minutes off Saka, etc., etc. So it's a bit, that's the one that really sticks out to me, because I still think we hammer Saka and Martinelli, and we don't really have a really convincing alternative to either of them. The striker chat, on strikers, I kind of think go big or go home. I'm not up for spending 80 million on 28-year-old Ivan Toney so that he can come off the bench in the rare occasions when we need to smash the ball up to someone. I think that appeals to fans because we like that idea. We like the idea of having a striker we can smash the ball up to, because that's what we want to see when the team's in trouble, when it's 0-0 or we're 1-0 down. We want someone to smash the ball to. I don't think that's worth £80 million in any stretch of the imagination. And I already think we've got Havertz anyway to do that. And actually our centre-forward depth is good in terms of Trossard, Havertz, Jesus, Nketiah. I don't think we should buy a striker unless it's going to be this guy is going to challenge and go past Gabriel Jesus. You know, I don't think we should buy another Eddie Nketiah. What's the point? For me, it's more about, I look at the squad. I just don't think the manager really rates Reece Nelson, and if that's the case, fine. But we've got to get someone for that spot, because I don't really think Trossard's a convincing wide option. But if you ask me what I think Arteta might do, I do think he might be attracted to the idea of going for a defender. Whether that's relatively short term, whether that's even possible, I don't know, because that's the other issue with short term shopping. It's hard to shop short term. You know, do we get a defender on loan? Like, who's that going to be? Who's going to want to do that? Because once Timber comes back, I think we're pretty well stacked back there. So it's weird. I really don't feel like any position is absolutely alarming, but I kind of feel like every position, almost, I'd be quite happy with someone coming in. But I think Arteta might prioritise a defender. He loves his defenders, so why not?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. But by the way, Tim, can I just stay with you for a second? I am prepared to dismiss any suggestion that Timber will be back this season even.
Yeah.
You could talk me into April being, participating in something, but some of the timelines I've seen, I look, there are always exceptions. There are always people that heal faster, they try a new procedure, medicine advances. But if you look at some of the medical journals out there, and as you know, I am an expert on medical journals, read them all basically. The outcomes are much worse when rushed back from ACLs.
Yeah.
So and then there's always the whole, you have a compensation injury or you get a hamstring. So like, are you in the same boat that any reliance on Timber being available this season would be pretty much a huge mistake?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, the club have been pretty quiet on what like they've said ACL, I think. I don't know if there's many more things you can do to your ACL other than rupture it. But an ACL rupture, like, he's not in training yet. And when you rupture your ACL, when you go back into training, it's months before you're playing again, because you've been off your feet. You go back to zero in terms of your conditioning in your legs, and they have to do all this biomechanics. You can tell I've just been watching, have seen the Viv Miedema and Beth Mead documentary, because it goes into this in detail. But they do stuff like with your biomechanics, so they make sure you don't overcompensate, so you don't limp. So they basically teach you to run again.
Yeah.
And so all of that takes months. And again, I can tell you from the women's team, I think Beth Mead started running outside in April, and she started her first game in October. It's a long way back. It's a long way back. So unless it's I don't know if an ACL strain exists, basically.
Yeah. Unless the way the injury was communicated and what they did with it is different than what's been done before. And look, let's be clear. Everyone can point to that one guy who that one time came back, that one time frame that's faster. But expecting your player to be an outlier and pushing them to be an outlier seems a dangerous and unnecessary approach. So I would rule out Timber as a factor this season. And so you have to factor that into your consideration of what we get. Clive, I totally agree with Tim on this. I don't think striker is a position where what we want to do is buy a guy who doesn't have the potential to be the guy. I think Jesus is the guy. And if he can stay fit, you're going to be hard pressed to find a guy better than that. But that's the goal. Osimhen at least could be better. I don't think Tony can, not to mention, again, he's 28, which means he's a million years old by all of my logic. We've mentioned this before. Like, would I take Ivan Toney on loan with an option but not a commitment for the rest of the season? Of course I'd take that, because just a stronger team at very little cost to us for doing it. But I can't see that happening. What's your opinion on where to go here and who maybe?
Crikey. I change my mind every day, right? So literally every day.
Do that, Clive. Can I just make a suggestion? Don't do that. Keep your mind the same, and then let people on the internet try to change your mind through their reasoned and kind and thoughtful reaction to your opinions.
Yeah, so I've gone through my Tony piece in my mind, and I'm thinking, I can see it. It's dependent on the deal. What's the deal? It's dependent on sales. Then I watched the interview with him, and I just looked and I thought, you know what? Do I see him at Arsenal as an individual? I just don't. Although I can understand it from a footballistic side of things, I can. I genuinely think he'll be a very good player for 3 to 5 years, no problem at all, just by the way he plays. But can I see him at this Arsenal? I'm not so sure. But then I said to you before, I look back at the team and I think we have 4 or 5 generational players that are all between 22 and 25, and we have to give them things. We can't give them some of my YouTube comp names, which I have going through my head. I don't know how good they're going to be if they arrive at Arsenal. I don't know how good they're going to be if they have to assimilate into the league. We did our Victor Osimhen stuff, and Elliot outside the box, he looks like Bambi. Inside the box, he looks like a ballet dancer. Everything just looks beautiful. It's incredible to watch his transformation. He just gets it inside the box. And when we just played a deep block team, he looked very attractive. Do you know what I mean? Because, but a lot of Arsenal's play is around facilitation in this current team. And, if you look at what Jesus has done, for example, to a Kai Havertz, since Jesus has come back into this team, Kai Havertz has just gone upwards, and he's a very important player to other players' form. And so again, do we try to replace like for like, or do we go a different direction with something else, which is part of the whole evolution of Arsenal Football Club? What does that look like? And I'm open to it, because there's other names out there. There's a guy just been linked today or this week. He used to play at Coventry, actually, at Sporting Lisbon, called Victor Gyökeres. And I looked at him on film, and I thought, you know what, you've got a similar style to Jesus, quite punchy, quite creative, but also got a bit more physical presence around the box. I don't know if he's going to work. Santiago Jimenez, playing in Holland, looks unbelievable in front of goal, like Robin van Persie. I don't know if he's going to work. If he can move Van Dijk out of the way and get a shot off. That's where we are. We're talking top 6 team in Europe. So we need to bring someone else who can bring something to that. And so I keep coming back to Osimhen, I'm afraid. He has the muscles, he has the power, he has the shot volume, he has the aerial ability. He's probably the best outside of Haaland in that sort of centre-forward position. So let's see if he's available or not.
I love it when you pull out those names I'm not as familiar with. He just tempt me with dreams of this player I've never heard of coming in and being brilliant. And, that's what we all look for. I think it's tough because if we had all of our players fit, not including Timber, right? If Partey was fit and available and Tomiyasu was fit and available, I think I'd feel pretty good just about standing pat where we are. Yeah, another attacker could make us stronger, but how strong are you going to demand to be? I think we'd be fine. I think we'd probably win the title at a canter, which we may still do. But, we're not in that situation. The thing that's tough is Tommy could go to Asia Cup and come back and have a hard time reintegrating, and the same thing could happen to Thomas Partey with the African Cup of Nations. There's also the FFP thing. And so I want to ask you this, Tim, is there a possibility that we maybe have more outgoings than we expect in January, and we really do make some moves, maybe even pull forward type moves in January, in that Thomas Partey goes and Aaron Ramsdale goes, and maybe I've heard Eddie Nketiah, as an option goes, and suddenly, you loan a Tony for a big loan fee, and you buy a defender, and you loan some kind of 38-year-old backup keeper. But could we be surprised at a number of sales, the ones I listed in particular? And would you be okay with that? Because the only risk I worry about is there's a weird alchemy of how a squad works. We're in a very good position right now in terms of how we're playing. Do you make the aggressive moves to try to really be poised for the home stretch? Or do you worry about unsettling anything and kind of just leave it be and see where you can get?
Yeah, I would. If Arsenal are serious about about signing someone significant, I think they are going to have to sell. I do think it's interesting that the kind of Eddie thing came out a bit this week, that Arsenal are looking for 40 million or whatever. If that's what they want to do, fine. I think if we get 40 million for Eddie Nketiah, for example, and we can think of a better way to spend that money, all for it. Ramsdale, clearly more of a risk, because we'd probably be leaving ourselves without a backup goalkeeper, really, unless we had someone in mind that we could bring in on the cheap or on loan, or whether we just carry that risk, I don't know. But that's potentially another one. I wouldn't be massively surprised to see it. Nelson's another one. Nelson, that might be a mutual thing as well. Like Arteta doesn't really want to use him that much, and he might force the issue. He might say, "Look, this isn't working for me anymore," and we could get some good money for Nelson, I guess. So I wouldn't be massively surprised. I do think we clearly need to sell, because the way the Raya deal was structured tells you we need to sell for FFP purposes. And this is one of the things, like, I think it's really interesting that so many people dismiss FFP, but everywhere you look, it's having a massive impact. Everyone's like, oh, everyone ignores that. And they either don't, or Everton ignored it and they got docked 10 points. It's having an impact, and you're seeing stuff like, I don't think Man City really wanted to sell Cole Palmer, but they got an offer for an academy player. That's pure book profit. Man City are the last club in the world that need money. They don't need to sell anyone for their balance sheet. They needed to sell for FFP because Man City are one of those. They're a high yield squad. They don't sell players at their peak. They have them at their peak, so they don't make much in sales. So they had to do that. And then you look at Chelsea at the moment. There's loads of rumours about Conor Gallagher. And it's he plays every single game and has been arguably, when I say their best player this season, that's, well done. But, someone who starts every game that Pochettino really values. And apparently Chelsea are looking at it and going, yeah, but if we get 40 million, that's pure book profit. And again, it's the same for Nketiah, same for Nelson. I don't think we'd get that much for Nelson, but Nketiah, if we got 40 million, that's pure book profit. And we could spend it somewhere else. Even up front, Elliot, I don't think we'd have to buy a striker if we sold Eddie Nketiah. It would be a risk, but we could say we've got Trossard. I like Trossard up front anyway. I'm happy with that. We've got Havertz as well. I wouldn't mind that. If we could get that money, I wouldn't sell him for anything, but if we could get something like 40 million, I'd probably go for it, because we kind of know where Eddie is in the squad, and he's a valuable squad player. I don't think he's really ever going to be any more than that. We can bring some money in and strengthen somewhere else. Great. I think that's exactly the sort of thing we probably should be doing. And if we could do that, that would then justify giving the new contract and protecting the value and all of that.
Yeah. Clive, thoughts on that? I think the thing that's interesting, if you look at it financially, right? When you buy a player for FFP purposes, you can amortize it over a period of years. When you sell a player, you can book the profit immediately, depending on what their cost is. So some certain factors. So if we sold a Nelson and an Eddie, you'd have a lot of book profit that you could spend in that window versus amortized spend. I don't want to get too much into it, primarily because I don't understand it totally well. But you could free up money that allows you to make much bigger moves than what you actually sold, based on what you'd book for selling guys like Nelson and Eddie in particular.
Yeah, you don't have to offset it against a transfer fee. So if you have no transfer fee for somebody, it's pure profit, right? So when you have a transfer fee, your amortization is, depending on what it is and what year you sell, then you have to book it against that transfer fee, your book value, shall we say. So we have 4 Hale Ellers in our squad, shall we say, that I think are potential sales. I don't want to say these names because people are going to get upset, but it's true, right? We've got Patino, Smith Rowe, Nelson, and Eddie. That's 4 players there. That's a lot of book value, a lot of cash in those players. And they could really propel the next signings, Patino's been looked at by Juventus as a replacement for Rabiot. Very similar lefty, nice rhythmic midfielder. Smart buy for Juventus if they do that. Projecting on an English player that he could sell back to England at a good profit if he does well. Very smart buy. Smith Rowe is showing the signs actually in the last couple of games of being back to his punchy self. Of all our Hale Ellers, I like him. I think he's almost undiscovered. I know it sounds crazy because he's got number 10 on his back, but I don't think we ever saw him pain-free consistently playing in playing for us really, rather than being a promising youth player that got an England cap and a goal. I think there's so much more in him if he's allowed to be pain free for a long time. And Eddie and Nelson, I think, have reached the ceiling with Arsenal Football Club. So it's just a matter of what happens, what they feel for their career and what they want to do. Do they want to be support players in this group, or do they want to go and further their careers elsewhere and be a starter somewhere in the Premier League? So there's money there. And I do think when we talk about January, it is in the exits. You know, you can add Ramsdale to that as well. It is in the exits when they happen. So in my mind, that's 5 UK British players potentially, and that could have a different dynamic to the squad, you know. And I do think, which is why I don't dismiss the Ivan Toney thing. I look around England, and there are players that we've been linked to: in Ivan Toney, Jacob Ramsey. And I look at these players and think, you know what? I don't dismiss it, because I think they could be a way to balance this out. Do you see what I mean? And I think it's very important we think about that. Obviously, Declan Rice has come in, but that is important for the squad makeup and demographics sort of thing. So, one to watch, Elliot. I saw with Tim from a medium time. I saw Pedro Neto's playing. He's back in training this week for the first time. I think Wolves play Chelsea, and so basically we have an opportunity to see him, because for me he's the ideal player for us. Both sides, really quick, really to sort of to fix Tim's itch that he has with wide men, which I tend to agree with. I think he's the best one. And then in defence now, I'm not sure which way we're going to go, but I do see Saliba as the biggest risk factor in our group. We don't have the ability to replace him consistently, and we need to do something there, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that is a huge risk that I prefer not to think about. Okay, let's get to a final thing here, and this is the easiest one, Tim. 4 years of Mikel Arteta. Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my expert interviewer question. Mikel Arteta, good at managing football club. Yes.
Well, yeah, indeed. I wrote a piece about this yesterday, actually. Just there we go. It took us to the end of the episode, but we got there. But yeah, just looking back at that first press conference, and I was talking about the excitement on the train up to Everton that day for one of the worst Arsenal games I've ever seen. And there was still infighting in the crowd, and people were still singing about bloody Arsenal fan TV as if that was something that was worth singing about.
Held us back for years.
Yeah, it's funny how that's the Arsenal AFTV, is still around doing its thing, and we're really good, and no one cares anymore. But anyway, you know, like just the opening press conference, and I really wanted to reflect on where we were at that stage. And I don't know if you remember the team lineup for that game at Everton, but Freddie Ljungberg threw out Maitland-Niles, Nelson, Saka when he was 18, Smith Rowe, Joe Willock was the first player off the bench, Lacazette and Pepe on the bench, Ozil left out because he kicked his chewing gum at Freddie Ljungberg. Like, we were down bad. And I looked up what Freddie Ljungberg said after that game, and he said, I played the young lads because I wanted to reward the players that trained well this week, which was clearly very much like everyone over 21 in this club is a disgrace at the moment, and good luck with that lot, Mikel. So, and just like looking back on what he said and how much it excited us, particularly coming off the back of the Emery era, where there were communication issues for sure, just having someone who kicked the door down, came in and just said, I'm cleaning this place up. And you really believed him, and you wanted to believe him as well, and just seeing him kind of carry that out. And, you know, I've said it before, I don't think he gets enough credit more widely, because he doesn't say mate in his press conferences. He doesn't give us good like his press conferences are quite boring. Actually, they're quite straight down the line. You know, he looks at you like you've spilt his pint, kind of thing. And I think he struggles probably for the credit he deserves outside of the club. But honestly, it's like where we were to where we are is unrecognizable from top to bottom, and it really is a remarkable job for a first-time coach to come in and take on that kind of job at this kind of club and do this is just remarkable. And we were crying out so much for someone to be like, I'm going to be unsentimental about this. I'm going to drive the standards and all of that. And then this year we get this kind of issue where he actually takes out a goalkeeper we like. And everyone's like, whoa, maybe dial down the ruthlessness a little bit, Mikel. And I know there are other reasons behind that, but do you know what I mean? Like, he's been so ruthless that even the fans have got to the stage where they're like, whoa, we actually quite like these guys. And yeah, it's a remarkable job. And I think we should say it because not enough people outside the football club do.
Really well said. I think it shows you how much fear there is of what this guy's capable of, how much jealousy there is that he's this good this early, how much concern there is over where this can go when you look at.
I was going to say, let me tell you, and I'll say this before the game and before the result, Klopp doesn't like it either. I promise you, Klopp has 5 years it's been Klopp and Pep, Klopp and Pep, Klopp and Pep, and now this guy's come along. And I promise you, and again, he's a competitor, so I get it, but he doesn't like it one bit.
Yeah, I mean, just you look at the media coverage, you look at the scrutiny he's under, you look at how everything he does gets put under the microscope. They don't do that with some middling manager that they're not concerned about. This is a young man who is very good and is under tremendous scrutiny as a result of it. Clive, I guess what I'll say is this. That Christmas 3 seasons ago, was it 3 seasons ago? When we were, 3 seasons ago. If they'd sacked him, I think collectively there would have been a lot of shrugs. You hit that kind of nadir, and usually we know how it ends. The club decided, and Emil Smith-Rowe decided to some extent, to give Mikel more time. And the Emil Smith-Rowe reference, if you're not aware, that's obviously the performance he put in against Chelsea on Boxing Day that really was the spark that turned things around. But they stuck with him because they saw what was in there. I don't think all of us did. I want to give credit to people that saw it. At that point, I was starting to abandon ship. Clive had pretty strongly shifted to wanting Mikel out, although he had been there almost from day one. And it hasn't been just a linear progression. But by and large, when he's been able to put out the teams that he's built without, substantial absentees and using holdovers from a prior era, we've played good football and we've gotten good results. When I look at the football we play now and that 4 years on from the Emery era, we are legitimately talking about, could we win a European and domestic double? Even if it doesn't happen, even if we don't get close, the fact that conversation is not being laughed off shows you the distance we've traveled. And Clive, I think, love Bukayo Saka, love Declan Rice, love William Saliba. The number one thing the club has to do right now is hold on to this guy because he has the desire, the talent, and the philosophy, the ideas, I think, to take us to the very top of the game if he hasn't already.
Yeah, I think he's done great. To his understatement, I always remember the game before he joined. Remember that? I think it was a Wednesday night game against Man City. Remember that one, Tim? And I wasn't there because I wasn't. And basically, I think they beat us 3-0 or 3-1. It was terrible. There was red seats everywhere. And there was rumours of him coming in, and I thought, oh no, mate, don't do it, son. We're all over the place. Don't do it because this could ruin your career. You've got a fantastic CV developing at Man City. Why would you want to do this? And he came in, and from minute one for me, I was sold. And the reason why is just how he spoke. And for me, for somebody who's never led before in a manager role, he was an instant leader. His leadership conversation was spot on. He told us about ourselves. No one had sat there and told us where we were going wrong. And then he told us what he was going to do to make it right. And for someone to come in, and then he reminded us of ourselves, of how great a club we are. At that time, I was feeling pretty low about the club. But that reminder was really uplifting to supporters. And the whole connectivity thing started for me from then on. He had to go through a COVID experience, which no one can help him with, because no manager support can help him with, because no one has done it before. Yeah. And then he had to manage that process. And for some people who were looking at that timeline of recovery and bring us back to the top level, they forget that COVID period when the market was dead and things weren't able to move. We had to make some strong financial decisions to allow us to be able to be where we are today. And then he changed systems. He used the systems that he had. He won the FA Cup. And I do think, I almost think he's been foot perfect apart from a few early sales. But once he got the project going, once him and Edu got closer together, once he got made manager, and once he really put this in place, I think he's been really, really good. And to Tim's point about Klopp, it's been on my mind, something similar to what Tim's mentioned, really. Yeah, Tim, once Raul left, absolutely right. I couldn't let that one go by. But there's something about Liverpool-Arsenal rivalry, because we are two organically created historic clubs. We're not new or money clubs. We're not that stuff. So it's almost as though we take umbrage at each other's success. So if we get Liverpool tomorrow and we beat them, we've done this organically. We have grown, we've developed, we brought young players in, and we've built it over time. When Liverpool won the league, it showed all of us that it could be done that way, without the financial doping that happened at Chelsea and Man City. And so I do think there's an extra edge when Liverpool play us, because they know we're not just competitors, we are competitors like them. So when we lose the league to Man City, you know what we all do? We hand wave it. We say, well, we're playing against the state. We can't beat them. We want to beat them, but we accept it. If we lost league Liverpool this year, we would hurt.
Yeah.
God forbid if Aston Villa or Spurs ever got to that level, or Man United. Well, maybe not Man United so much because they're a monster in themselves. But we would hurt in a different way because they have similar resources, a similar background. They're historic clubs. We would hurt. Because why couldn't we do it? And that's why Liverpool are on their toes. Literally, that's the words they use. They're on their toes. They've got to keep us down. And we have a chance on Saturday night to really beat them and beat them properly. When they're in shape and we're in shape. I think it's such an important moment for this club to really not put Liverpool to sleep, because you just won't. They're a huge club and well run, got great people around the club. But we have to show we're for real. And we can't go there and get done 4s and 5s. Tim's been to a few of those games. I don't know how we could stomach that journey. When really bad ones home, really bad ones home. It's time to turn that around for all the people that are going on Saturday, all the people hoping for a good Christmas, so to make sure it's a good Arsenal Christmas. I think the moment's coming, lads. I really do. And I think we're in good shape to do it.
Yeah. And there is always a danger of measuring success and failure purely off the end result. But at the end of the season, last season, there are 3 trophies that matter in my view. The league and the Champions League. Slightly below that, the FA Cup. And then the League Cup doesn't even matter. One team won all of them. Every other team in England ended their season without that success. So I don't think you can only say, hey, it's just trophies, that's it, that's all there is. I think the Invincibles should have won more than they did. They absolutely should have won the European trophy and the European Cup, and they should have won more Premier Leagues than they did. But anybody would take that team back and take that experience back supporting that team. And what we have now, I think, can give us similar highs. Whether it can give us the ultimate highs of the trophies remains to be seen. But I am not in the camp of, until it does that, it's been worthless, because I've really enjoyed the shit out of it so far, and it's only getting better. So we chart a path forward, onward and upward. We'll have an instant reaction tomorrow after the big win, he says, sweating. And I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun, because this fixture is always tons of fun. It is funny, though, in a way. It is a fixture that has been historically high scoring, crazy, chaotic. Arshavin, 4 goals, right? There's been a lot of interesting history to this fixture over the years, and I'm sure tomorrow we'll add to that. So we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for being with us. Sorry for this coming out a day later, but we wanted to get the manager's quotes, make sure there was no weird team news, stuff like that. So we're all good. We're ready to go. And now all that we have to do is go beat Liverpool at Anfield. Tim's on Twitter at Stillman. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter. You ain't gonna. We love you. And I am certain we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Liverpool 0.